Hey guys, Scott here. Today we're going to talk about Hex Pentimento and whether or not it is too strong and how you can deal with it in solo queue because it is definitely known as the solo queue destroyer. I saw a tweet by Otz talking about a bunch of problematic perks. Pentimento was one of them, and I completely understand that point. Pentimento in solo queue can sometimes be a just free win for the killer, but I have less sympathy in terms of like wanting it to be nerfed, because it really is a perk that is entirely up to the survivors to give the killer. For those who don't know what Pentimento does, it lets you relight a broken totem on the map, and when you relight that totem, every gen is slowed down by 30%. It is not even close. It is the best slowdown perk in the game by such a wide margin. It's essentially the strength of two slowdown perks in one. It is insanely impactful to the point where it just straight up wins you the match if you're able to get Pentimentos up. And a lot of people in solo queue do not know how to deal with it. And because of the lack of communication and things like that, it can be extremely hard to deal with. So here is how you deal with it in solo queue. There's a couple of ways. First up, this is a method that requires a general message to be sent to everybody because it requires cooperation among everybody for it to actually happen. And that is just stop breaking totems. Stop breaking totems in general. Don't break dull totems for inner strength. Don't break hex totems. Don't break anything ever. There's pretty much one exception to that, and we'll get that in a second. But there is no hex perk whose existence is more of a threat than Pentimento. And typically, if killers run hex perks nowadays, they're going to run Pentimento with it, because why would you ever not? You either get the powerful effects of a Hex or the extremely powerful effects of Pentimento. There's no reason to not run them together now. Every once in a while, you will get a random killer who's just running Rune, and that's it. And you're like, well, that's weird. But for the most part, if you see a Hex perk, you have to assume that they have Pentimento because of the effect that it has in the match. Remember how people said that Dead Hard was so strong because it actually has an impact on the match even when no one has Dead Hard? Killers have to play around it. This is sort of the same thing. Survivors have to assume the existence of Pentimento as soon as you see any Hex perk. You just have to have that in the back of your mind. And because of that, no Hex perk is worth breaking except Devour Hope. Devour Hope is the only perk that's actually scarier than Pentimento, and that does warrant a hunt for it, because that can just end the game instantly rather than make the game take longer to win. So Devour Hope is the one exception. You do need to find that. And it's a little spooky because if you're not breaking totems, you find out once it's starting to be too late. He's already got the expose, and that's already going to be a huge problem. But you can kind of tell if a killer has Devour Hope, or at least be hinted pretty early if they do, based on their playstyle, and you see a Hex. If you see a Hex, try to pay attention to what happens with the killer when they hook somebody. If they immediately fuck off as far away as possible, it's a pretty good indicator that they're running Devour Hope. If they're kind of hovering in the area and they don't seem concerned about maintaining a stack or gaining a stack of Devour Hope, then they probably don't have it. So that's pretty much your main option there, but that's the only exception. Every other Hex perk in the game is not stronger than Pentimento. And a common setup one is Plaything. Guys, please stop breaking Plaything. It is never worth the time spent to break Plaything. And look, I understand it puts you in a bad scenario sometimes. If you have a Leatherface with Plaything, that's scary. You can be on a generator, you don't hear anything, and now you're just down because he's right behind you with a chainsaw. Individually, to a single player, that is scary and it does suck. It gives the killer a lot of strength. But again, just you going down there is still not as impactful as everyone in the entire game being slowed down by 30%. And it's not just that slowdown by 30%, because it's not like everyone just sits on gens anyway. You usually have one guy trying to look for it, one guy trying to power through it, one guy's trying to save you. Basically, try running a Hex build with Pentimento and watch what happens as soon as you set your first one up. You will notice gens just stop, because people are looking for it and people don't want to power through a 30% slowdown. So the point is, even though individually you may suffer more, killer might have blood favor up, which makes getting chased by that killer much, much harder. The pallets that you have are no longer even usable, and you just pretty much have to hold W. Even then, all of these things, even though they individually may be more impactful with you going down as a player, they still don't impact the game nearly as much as Pentimento. So if you just don't interact with any of these Hex perks, the killer essentially just doesn't have any slowdown. And their chases will be quicker because they probably have Hex perks that will help them with that. But the game will go so much faster that it's still not worth it to actually break those totems. So that is my main advice. Just straight up don't break totems. There's just no reason to really do it anymore. The effects of Pentimento are too strong and the threat of it is always present, and you have to respect the fact that it could be in existence. But This is only a strategy that works if everyone is on board with it. It's sort of like the plague don't cleanse strategy. Everyone has to be on board with it. If you're not on board with it, well, then you're just going to be in a scenario where one guy is screwing you over and you're right back in the same spot. So, more realistic take for solo queue. You need to keep track of every time someone breaks a totem on the map. You will have teammates that will break hex totems, and as soon as you hear that thunder, I don't care if you're getting chased, you have to look where that totem is. You need to get a general idea. Now, you're not going to know exactly where it is, obviously, but you'll get a very good clue, roughly, of where it is. And that's all you need. You just need to go in the general area. You'll be able to hear the fire burning sound effect, and you'll be able to break it. So as soon as any of these are broken, find where the notification is, go towards that area, and then wait for the Pentimento to show up, and then go break it. So you do need to keep a mental map of where totems are being broken, because you need to assume everybody on your team is a drooling idiot that immediately just loses object permanence as soon as they break a totem, and they will never remember where they broke it to cleanse the Pentimento that replaces it. So that is probably the most important thing I can tell you in solo queue. Remember where totems are broken. If you want to break one yourself, that's fine. Obviously, it's a lot easier for you to remember where you broke it. I still say don't bother breaking them at all, but say it's like Devour Hope or something. Still remember where you broke it. And that's a lot easier because you know the exact position. But just pay attention to the explosion sounds, hear the thunder, look where it's happening, and then you should be able to go and find the Pentimento. Now, it's still going to waste a lot of your time. You have to walk there. You have to spend 14 seconds breaking the totem itself. So it's still going to take you time, but that's better than everyone getting slowed down by 30% and frantically running around looking for the totem. So that's still the lesser of two evils there. So the question is Pentimento too strong of a slowdown perk? A lot of people suggest, hey, maybe make it so reversed how it kind of used to be, where 2 stacks is the generator slowdown and 1 stack is the healing slowdown. I don't think it's a good solution. With that version of Pentimento, it's just not worth running. It's not even a good perk. It's only good if it's on that first stack, you get the generator slowdown. And the fact that the entire perk only functions if survivors give you the perk makes me think it's not overpowered. It's without a doubt the strongest slowdown in the game, like no question. But I don't think it's overpowered because it is technically fully in control of the survivors to give you that perk. If they don't break any totems, you don't have a perk. And so it's really just about knowledge and knowing how to counter it. And if the main problem with it is that people are just dumb and don't know how to handle it, I don't think that warrants nerfing, because you can't balance things around people that just don't know what to do. You shouldn't balance things around, competitive players either, but it should be around, the average, somewhat knowledgeable player that understands what a Hex Perk is and understands what Pentimento is. You can't be balancing around people that have no idea how to handle it, because then you can't balance anything ever. So those are my tips. Number 1, as a general consensus, don't break totems. They're just usually not worth it. There's a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, it's just not worth breaking totems. Like Plaything is a perfect example. Just leave that shit up. It's not worth it. If you are still having people break totems, pay attention to where the explosions are. And then once you see Pentimento light up, you'll see your generator bar go red. You'll see the indicator that you're hexed in the right side of your screen. As soon as you see that, go to where you remember you saw it break and just go and break it. You might have to play babysitter for people that are being dumb, but that's okay. As long as someone is doing it, the game can proceed a bit more smoothly. So those are my takes on Pentimento. It is fairly easy to deal with, but expecting random people to deal with that is a problem. So you really got to do it yourself. And once everyone gets to that point, I don't think the perk will be nearly as strong. It's just really due to ignorance of how to deal with the perk that it becomes such a strong perk. So I don't think that's grounds for nerfing or anything like that. I think it's pretty balanced as it is. It's definitely on the very high end of strength, but I don't think it needs to be nerfed or anything like that. People just need to learn to play around it a lot better. So hopefully that was a bit of a help. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.